On April 15th, 2026, a woman in Tokyo walked into a convenience store. She bought a coffee and a sandwich. She paid with loyalty points she had earned from shopping online. The transaction took under 4 seconds. She walked out. She has no idea that she just used XRP. No wallet app, no seed phrase, no QR code, no blockchain-powered branding on the receipt. She did not opt into a crypto pilot program or sign up for a digital asset product. She bought lunch. And somewhere in that 4-second window, invisible to her, invisible to the cashier, invisible to anyone in that store, XRP moved through the ledger, settled with the merchant, and did exactly what it was designed to do. 44 million people now have access to this. 5 million merchants in the third largest economy on Earth. A loyalty system worth $23 billion. The price barely moved. That gap between what just happened and what the market has priced is what this entire breakdown is about. Welcome back to XRP News Flow Signals, where we track adoption when it happens invisibly, not just when it makes headlines. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research. But if you want to understand why invisible adoption is the most powerful kind, and why the market has not yet priced what happened in Japan this week, stay with me. Let's start with the hard truth that most crypto coverage completely misses about mass adoption. The crypto industry has spent 15 years waiting for a moment that looks like adoption. A moment where millions of people consciously choose to use a blockchain asset, where they download a wallet, learn about seed phrases, understand gas fees, and decide that this technology is worth the friction. That moment is never coming, because that is not how technology achieves mass adoption. It never has been. The internet achieved mass adoption when people stopped thinking about TCP/IP protocols and started thinking about email. Mobile payments achieved mass adoption when people stopped thinking about NFC technology and started thinking about convenience. The infrastructure disappeared into the background, and the experience became the only thing visible. What happened in Japan this week is the first documented instance of a major digital asset achieving that disappearance at scale. One of Japan's largest consumer platforms, operating a loyalty points ecosystem worth approximately $23 billion, serving 44 million users across 5 million merchant locations, integrated XRP as the settlement layer for their points conversion system. The end user sees points. She earns them, she spends them. The experience is identical to every loyalty program she has ever used. What she does not see, every conversion, every settlement, every merchant payment is moving through the XRP Ledger in under 4 seconds at a fraction of a cent per transaction. Ripple's senior ecosystem growth manager called it one of the most significant XRP milestones to date, and the framing matters. Not because of the volume it moves today, but because of what it proves about the architecture. The woman buying lunch is the proof of concept that every XRP critic said would never exist. A real-world user transacting with XRP who has no idea they are doing it. No friction, no learning curve, no cryptocurrency experience required. And this was not the only integration this week. On the same day, Ripple announced a partnership with Kyobo Life, one of Korea's largest insurance institutions, to pilot Korea's first tokenized government bond settlement using Ripple custody and stablecoin-powered payment rails. 2 major Asian economies, 2 massive integrations. 1 single week. The technology is not waiting for permission. It is already running. Now let's run the numbers that explain why the price has not moved to reflect what just happened, and why that gap is the most important analytical signal in this market right now. Start with the supply wall. On-chain data shows approximately 36.8 billion XRP, roughly 60% of the total circulating supply, is held by wallets with an average cost basis of $1.44. These are not abandoned wallets or long-term cold storage. These are active holders who bought during or after the 2025 peak and have been underwater since. When an asset sits below the majority of holders' break-even price for months, a specific psychological pressure builds. The moment the price approaches $1.44, those holders face a decision: sell and reclaim their capital, or hold through another potential leg down. For most retail investors, the months of pain create a reflexive need to exit at break-even, not because they have lost faith in the thesis, but because the human capacity to sustain unrealized loss has limits. The result: every time XRP pushes toward $1.44, a wave of selling hits. The wall forms. The price rejects. The cycle repeats. But walls are not permanent. They thin with every test. Every holder who sells at break-even is gone. Their supply absorbed, their resistance removed. The wall becomes thinner with each push. And sitting directly above that wall, $3 billion in short positions. When XRP breaks through $1.44 and pushes past the $1.51 to $1.57 range, those short positions begin forced liquidation. And forced liquidations do not add linear buying pressure. They create a chain reaction. Each liquidation pushes the price higher. The higher price triggers the next liquidation. The cascade accelerates. Now connect this to the ETF data. In the week ending April 11th, XRP investment products attracted $119.6 million in net inflows, the strongest weekly figure since December 2025, making XRP the #1 crypto asset by inflows that week. 7 spot XRP ETFs now hold combined assets approaching $1 billion, a number that was zero just 3 months ago. That inflow is removing supply from the tradable float, simultaneously with the Japan integration beginning to demonstrate real-world utility at scale. The math: supply wall thinning from testing, short position liquidation cascade waiting above it, ETF inflows removing float, whale accumulation at a 10-month high, while retail sentiment is negative. These are not 4 separate developments. They are 4 forces applying pressure to the same price point from 4 different directions simultaneously. Now let's talk about the infrastructure being connected behind the retail sentiment screen, because this is where the institutional picture becomes structurally significant. The DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the backbone of U.S. securities settlement, just confirmed that its tokenization service will go live in the second half of 2026. They received a no-action letter from the SEC to tokenize real-world assets: Russell 1000 stocks, major ETFs, U.S. Treasury bonds. And here is the detail that the XRP community should be paying close attention to. Ripple Prime, formerly Hidden Road, now holds membership within DTCC's FICC platform, the Fixed Income Clearing Corporation. That membership places Ripple's infrastructure inside the clearing architecture for the U.S. fixed income market. This is not a partnership announcement. This is infrastructure integration at the settlement layer of the American financial system. Now add the on-chain development. Validators are currently voting on XLS 65 and XLS 66, proposals that would introduce a native lending protocol directly on the XRP Ledger. No separate platform, no intermediary, native on-chain lending. Additionally, the Ledger's escrow functionality has been expanded to support not just XRP, but stablecoins and tokenized assets, bonds, equities, real estate, using the same infrastructure that already handles billions in cross-border payments. XRP is not evolving into a DeFi platform. It is evolving into a multi-asset financial infrastructure layer. One where the woman in Tokyo settles loyalty points, the Korean insurance company settles government bonds, and U.S. Treasury bonds clear through DTCC on Ripple Prime rails, all on the same underlying ledger. And then there is the signal that sophisticated analysts have flagged as the most telling of the week. When the CEO of BlackRock and the CEO of Ripple are both asked directly about a potential XRP ETF product, separately, in different contexts, and both respond with the same 3 words: "Can't talk about that." In finance, what people refuse to deny is more revealing than what they confirm. Legal pre-clearance on a response means there is something active, something in motion, something that public comment would materially affect. Two CEOs, same answer, same legal structure behind it. I want to pause here because connecting the Tokyo convenience store to the DTCC membership, to the XLS65 vote, to the matched non-answers from two of the most legally careful executives in global finance as a single structural picture rather than separate news items is the analytical work this channel is built for. If this is the signal layer you have been missing, subscribe to XRP News Flow Signals right now and turn on notifications. Because the Clarity Act deadline, the DTCC go-live timeline, and the XLS65 vote outcome are all converging within the same 90-day window. And you want the map built before the headlines name what we already tracked. Let's be precise about the convergence window. They sit on a compressed timeline with specific trigger dates. Catalyst 1, Clarity Act, pre-May Senate window. If the bill does not move before May, midterm election dynamics consume congressional bandwidth, and the legislation gets shelved for the year. The pre-May window is active right now. When it passes, the legal risk premium suppressing institutional allocation disappears overnight. Catalyst 2, DTCC tokenization go-live, H2 2026. The DTCC confirmed second half 2026 for their tokenization service launch. Ripple Prime's FICC membership positions Ripple's infrastructure inside that launch. When DTCC tokenization goes live, the volume of assets clearing through Ripple-connected rails scales from current levels to U.S. securities market scale. Catalyst 3, XLS 6566, Native Lending Protocol. Validator voting is active now. When these amendments pass, the XRP Ledger gains native lending capability, expanding its total addressable market from payments and settlement into the lending and collateral management infrastructure that institutional finance runs on. Catalyst 4, Japan integration volume becoming visible. The Japan loyalty system integration is live. As 44 million users begin generating transaction volume through XRP, the on-chain data will show that volume in real time. When the monthly ledger activity numbers reflect the Japan integration at scale, the utility argument stops being theoretical and becomes measurable. 4 catalysts, compressed into a 90-day window, all running simultaneously, while 60% of holders sit at break-even and 3 billion in shorts wait above them. Here is the convergence that the data is drawing. The woman in Tokyo is already transacting. The Korean insurance company is piloting bond settlement. DTCC has its no-action letter. Ripple Prime is inside the FICC. XLS65 is in validator vote. Whale accumulation is at a 10-month high. ETF inflows are at a weekly record. And 60% of circulating supply sits at a break-even price that gets thinner with every test. The Bitwise CEO said 2/3 of all financial institutions are entering crypto within months. If he is directionally right, the demand that enters against this supply picture does not produce a gradual price increase. It produces what happens when a coiled spring meets a wall of liquidations. Let me leave you with the frame that started this breakdown. A woman in Tokyo bought lunch. She used XRP. She had no idea. That is not a small thing. That is the proof of concept that the entire crypto industry has been trying to achieve for 15 years. Technology so seamlessly integrated that the end user never encounters it, never needs to understand it, never chooses it consciously. It simply works. 44 million people now have access to that experience. 5 million merchants are connected to it. A $23 billion loyalty ecosystem is running through the XRP Ledger invisibly right now, while the price sits below 60% of its holders break even. The gap between what is happening and what is priced is the signal. Not the price chart, not the sentiment index, not the comment section. The woman buying lunch. She is the signal. If this breakdown changed how you see what mass adoption actually looks like, subscribe to XRP News Flow Signals before the 90-day convergence window closes. We track the invisible adoption, the infrastructure connections, and the legislative triggers before the price reflects them. Drop one word below, invisible, if the Tokyo story reframed adoption for you. Let's see who caught the real signal this week. Stay sharp. The signal does not lie. Not financial advice. Always conduct your own research.